Much has been made about that bizarre ending. Is Ballantyne trying to escape or kill himself? Well, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the offices of the Production Code Administration. In Jonathan Latimer's script, having his wicked life laid bare in court causes our guilt-racked guy to kill himself by jumping out the window just before the jury comes back with a verdict of not guilty. Now that would be a powerfully ironic ending. By the letter of the code, however, no one could escape the state's justice by committing suicide. So, despite the jury finding Ballantyne not guilty, Hollywood's moral guardians demanded that God's punishment should be carried out by a trigger-happy bailiff. Now, I swear, if Hal Wallace or Mark Hellinger had produced this film, Big Intimidating Men, they would have swayed the boys in the PCA to let the original ending stand. And this wasn't the only time producer Joan Harrison had a powerful but bleak ending whisked away from her. Her 1945 film, The Strange Affair of Uncle Harry, featured a creepily incestuous brother-sister relationship that climaxed with a shocking accidental murder. But the brass at Universal tested the film for a bunch of teenagers in Pasadena who predictably hated it. So the studio caved in and demanded a softer ending, which Harrison refused to shoot. Instead, she walked out of her Universal contract and spent the rest of her Hollywood career studio hopping as a producer for hire. But when she left the movie business in 1951, Joan Harrison still had her most creative years ahead of her. She and Alfred Hitchcock reunited when he gave her the reins as the executive producer of his new television show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. For several years, she worked in tandem with actor-producer Norman Lloyd, who told me that Joni was one of the most brilliant people he'd ever worked with, in addition to being easy on the eyes. When Harrison was 51 years old, she finally met a man worthy of her, novelist Eric Ambler. They married, moved back to England, and dabbled in murder and mayhem on screen for the rest of their lives. Actress Jane Greer shared very fond memories of Joan Harrison, whom she credited with launching her career as a serious actress.
I'm in love and it's wrong. There's only one thing to do about it. Not see you anymore.
Harrison had wanted Greer for the lead in Nocturne, but George Raft, the king of crappy decisions, nixed her because she wasn't big enough to play opposite him. Now, at the start of her career, Greer had been typecast as a femme fatale, but with They Won't Believe Me, Joan Harrison gave her not just a juicy, well-developed role, but equal billing, above the title, with much more famous co-stars. This boosted Greer's stock at RKO, which led directly to her being cast later that year in what would be her most famous film, Out of the Past, playing, what else, a femme fatale for the ages. Jane also told me a funny story about Susan Hayward. It seemed that at the end of every day's filming, as Jane was leaving the set, she'd hear a series of little screams coming from Hayward's dressing room. After a few days of this, Jane finally worked up the courage to knock. And inside, she found Hayward ripping strips of gaffer's tape off her torso, a trick she used to make her form-fitting wardrobe hug her just so her bosom was accentuated no matter which way she turned. Take that, you production code prudes. Now remember, you can continue the Noir conversation on Facebook and Twitter. Just look us up under Noir Alley. You can even check out what movies we have coming up in the weeks ahead. Next time on Noir Alley, the tale of a postman who doesn't ring twice. He just swipes 30 grand that doesn't belong to him, with the usual catastrophic consequences. Until then, see you in the shadows.